So, you're a Jeep owner, and you've run into the error code P2305. It can be a real headache, right? But what is your vehicle actually trying to tell you? Well, today we're going to decode that message and turn all that confusion into clarity.
You know the feeling. We've all been there. You're just driving along, everything's fine, and then, bam, that little orange engine icon lights up your dashboard. And you get that universal feeling of, oh, what now? And you know, that light isn't just an annoyance, it's a signal. When a scanner pulls up the code P2305, your Jeep is sending a really specific message straight from its engine, and we're going to translate it right here, right now.
So, what is this code all about anyway? Well, P2305 is what's known as a diagnostic trouble code, and it points directly to a problem in your engine's ignition system. To be specific, it's telling us there's an issue with the ignition coil 2 secondary circuit.
See, your Jeep has a brain. It's called the Powertrain Control Module, or PCM, and it's constantly running checks on everything. When it triggers code P2305, it means the PCM tried to create a spark in one of the cylinders, but it couldn't confirm that it actually happened correctly. It's kind of like sending a text message and never getting that delivered confirmation. The computer just knows something went wrong.
To really get what the problem is, we got to do a super quick refresher on how a spark is even created in the first place. It's this amazing, almost instantaneous process that happens thousands of times a minute while you're driving down the road.
The absolute hero of this whole process is the ignition coil. You can think of it like a tiny but really powerful transformer. Its whole job is to take that low 12-volt charge from your battery and crank it up into tens of thousands of volts. You need that massive voltage to create a spark that's hot enough and strong enough to ignite fuel. And, over time, with all the heat and vibration in the engine bay, these coils can just wear out and fail.
So it's really a simple three-step dance. First, the computer sends out the signal. Second, the coil juices up the power. And third, the spark plug makes the spark that ignites the fuel. This code, P2305, it's telling us that there's a problem somewhere in this chain, and the computer is smart enough to have noticed it.
All right, time to put on our detective hats. When you're trying to figure out P2305, you always start with the most common culprits, the physical parts you can actually see and touch. It's just the easiest place to begin. Now, your first two suspects are almost always the most likely offenders. It could just be a worn-out spark plug. I mean, after millions and millions of sparks, that little electrode just gets worn down and can't create a good arc anymore. Or it could be the coil on plug itself. That's the ignition coil we were just talking about, which might have just failed from old age or heat. These are usually the very first things a mechanic is going to check. But what if the parts themselves are actually fine? What if you check them and they look brand new? Well, then our investigation has to go a little deeper into the electrical highways that power these parts. It's time to check the circuits. Now, I know these terms can look really intimidating. I get it. Fused ASD relay output, coil control 2 circuit, shorted to ground. It sounds like a whole different language, but I promise the ideas behind them are actually pretty simple once you break them down. Here's the key. Think of a healthy circuit like a solid, unbroken bridge that electricity can travel across. Now, when a circuit is open, it means there's a break in the wire. It's like the bridge is collapsed. The computer's command to fire the spark just can't get to the coil. A short is different. That's like a leak in the system where electricity escapes and goes somewhere it shouldn't, like to the engine block. When that happens, the energy just disappears before it can build up in the coil, and you get a weak spark, or no spark at all. Okay, so we've checked the spark plug, we've tested the coil, we've even inspected all the wiring for any breaks or shorts, but the code is still there. What could possibly be left? Well, we have to consider the source of the command itself. This is the part of the diagnosis that nobody really likes, because if all the external parts and all their wiring are perfectly healthy, it kind of forces us to look at the one thing that's controlling this whole show. And there it is. The final suspect is the Powertrain Control Module, the PCM. This is the brain of your engine. Now, it's the least common cause, for sure, but it is possible for the internal circuits of the PCM itself to fail. If it can't send the signal out correctly or it can't read the feedback, it might throw that P2305 code even if every single other part is working perfectly. Okay, that was a lot of information, I know. So how do we put it all together into a logical plan? Let's build ourselves a clear roadmap for diagnosing this code, from start to finish. So here is your action plan. You always start with the simplest, most likely cause, and then work your way to the most complex. It's all about logical elimination. First, check the spark plug. Second, test the coil. If those are both okay, then you move on to steps 3 and 4, inspecting the wiring for those opens or shorts. And only after you have ruled out everything else do you, as your final step, start to suspect the PCM. And that really is the main takeaway here. This isn't just about fixing one little code. By understanding what your vehicle is trying to tell you, you're in a much better position to make smart decisions, have better conversations with your mechanic, and ultimately take better care of your Jeep for the long haul. So the next time that little light pops on, don't just see it as a problem. See it as a message, a piece of a puzzle. It's your car communicating with you. The only question left is, are you ready to listen?